feel like it went great, other than the kids that, you know, are always off task. I mean, really can't do anything about them. They don't want to be here anyway, so.
So, with your students that are off task, do you think that it happens a lot? Was it just this particular lesson?
It happens all the time. They just don't like reading.
Okay. Well, when I looked at your lesson, I did look at some things. I saw some really good ideas, and I saw some things that we might be able to tweak a little bit that might be able to help you with your students that are off task.
Okay.
Okay. So, looking back at just kind of going through your lesson, I took some notes, tried to write down everything that happened during your observation. And when you had first got started, you had 5 students that didn't have paper. What might we have done to help them with paper? Is it that they never have paper? What does that situation look like?
I really believe they just don't really, you know, I mean, these kids have Jordans on their feet,
Sure.
they don't have paper.
Sure.
I mean, like,
Sure.
like what do we do? We give them paper and then do we bring it? You know, so I'm really not sure what to do because we've offered them paper before. I have plenty of typing paper.
Okay. And so that's one way or one thing that we can initially start, because if a child says, I don't have paper, then they're giving themselves a way out of doing your work.
They are.
So just a couple of different ways that we might look at that. One, like you said, you have the typing paper. So we might say, okay, once we, get ready with our assignments, everybody take out their paper. And then if students don't have paper, just go ahead and give them a piece.
Okay.
Or if you want to keep a binder, inside the classroom that they had to keep paper in. But the more that we can eliminate their excuses, the better chances we have of them being successful.
I agree with you. They have plenty of excuses.
Oh yeah, they'll definitely have excuses, and that's going to be kids.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That they've had a past of not being successful. It's normal for them to not be successful. So we need to change their confidence level, change their expectations, and make them feel that we're going to make them a part of this lesson. Okay? So if they do have paper, then we've taken away that problem. So with your popcorn reading, what happened to your students when you gave them the lesson in the way of, okay, we're gonna let people pick on each other? How did it go from there?
Well, I mean, typically the better readers are chosen. I mean, I think kids kind of have that general idea that they don't want to purposely embarrass their
Sure,
classmates,
sure.
and I respect that. And Tony's gonna do most of the reading because he's the sharpest
Right.
tool in the shed. And
Right.
Sally and Betty also are a close second and third behind
Sure.
Tony.
Sure.
So usually they lead the class, and their verbal syntax and everything is a little bit better than everyone else's. Their fluency is great. So pretty good model for reading as well.
So, and that's a very good thing, but the one thing that becomes a challenge is if we only have 2, 3, 4 students that are involved, that are interacting with us, we're not really getting a good gauge of if the students are comprehending what they need to. So some different things that we might look at, some things that I've had success with is putting our students into smaller groups.
About how many in a group?
Well, let's say I have 20 students. I might, if everybody has a book, I might put them in 5 groups of 4.
Okay.
And then something I like to do is give them all numbers. So if I know that they're reading, let's say 5 paragraphs, I'll say, okay, number 1 across the groups, all of you are readers.
Okay.
So the one thing that does is it forces more students to interact.
Okay.
Okay? And then I'm getting a better gauge of, not just can they read, but also can they understand what's going on.
I got
Okay? And so just kind of going through my notes a little bit further, with us not giving them something active to do, as the class went on, we had more and more students that kind of tuned it out. Okay? So when you had started your class, I thought it was very good that you gave them a specific a tool to use as far as a T-chart. But I might have went a little bit further and said, okay, everybody take out your paper, go ahead and put a T-chart, and then underneath your T-chart, we're going to start writing down your own ideas.
Okay.
So then as you went through their reading, you could have stopped them or said, okay, number 1's going to read the first 2 paragraphs.
What if they don't write anything? Because I have a couple students I don't think we're writing anything.
And that's when we're going to guide them. Okay? the choice whether to work or to not work, we're going to try to take that out and try to encourage them. Okay, so if we say number ones, you get done with your reading, then we come back to a whole class, and then I ask the students questions, because the one thing, like you said, with your better students, they're very encouraged, and they love to look like the best kid in the class. But we want to encourage those other students to step out of their their boxes, so to say. So if I have Jeffrey over here, I'll say, okay, in those first 2 paragraphs, Jeffrey, how do you think Tim felt? Okay, and then, but the first part I'd have them write on their own, and then I'd say, okay, let's come together, and then their explanations, their reasoning, I go jot those things on the board. So on their T-charts, even if they didn't have something wrote down for the first one, at least they're writing down some of the things that I think it was Jim, or that Jim had. So they're starting in the right direction. Okay. So then when I start the second person to reading, you can start making your walk around, and if you need to have those small conversations, you can say, I'm looking to hear what you have to say, because you might have something different than Tony has to say. And what you have to say is just as valuable as he does.
Okay.
So it's not a matter of, getting them to do everything, but you're trying to increase what they're doing. Okay? So there were, a question I had is, what exactly were you trying to get out of them for their writing activity? What was your goal?
Well, honestly, it was a compare and contrast lesson at the end. So I wanted them to compare and contrast, traits and characteristics of Jim's personality and the other character's personality. The writing, I just try to include another competency, just try to, I hear you guys always saying, make sure students are writing, because we leave that out. So, I just tried to get them to also kind of collect those thoughts in a writing piece, so I could, also be working on another competency.
And that's phenomenal. The more competencies that you can put into one activity, the better. But you want to make sure that even in that, you're guiding them. Okay, make sure that you're starting your first paragraph off with, some sort of description, or, whatever direct goal you want to have out of that. Try to push them into that direction, because you want to lead them as much as possible, not necessarily giving them the answer, but making them feel confident to move on with what they're doing. Okay, and I just really believe that, the one part of getting rid of their excuses. And then the second part, if you have kids putting their head down, if you have them, I think I saw a girl in the back sitting down, putting on nail polish or whatever, you need to address it. Because if you let them do that, the next time they're going to come to class, they're going to be fixing their hair, cutting each other's hair. So you definitely want to address that behavior.
But I'm afraid to address it, because I don't want to deter my Tonys and my Sallys and my Bettys, who are doing a great job. And allow the class to go to a confrontation between me and 5 gang members who don't want to be here anyway.
Sure. And I never recommend getting into a confrontation. Okay.